The rain hadn't stopped all night. I pulled into the gas station more out of habit than need, another late-night drive with no destination, just the comfort of motion. The place was nearly empty, except for one car at the far pump. I noticed her almost instantly. A woman, maybe twice my age, standing with her arms crossed, eyes red, lost in whatever pain she carried. I don't know why, but I couldn't look away. I kept my distance, filled up, and bought a chocolate bar I didn't need. When I came out, she was still there. Something in me stirred, maybe it was the loneliness in her eyes that felt familiar. I walked over and, without a word, handed her the chocolate. She looked at it, then at me, and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, more like a thank you for noticing she existed. Then it happened. She stepped closer, close enough to feel the warmth between us despite the cold. She kissed me. Soft. Hesitant. Brief. But it was real. It wasn't desire, it was understanding. And it changed everything. I've always been the quiet type. Not shy, exactly, just more comfortable with silence than small talk. Crowds exhaust me, parties feel like performances, and most of the time, I'd rather be alone with my thoughts than pretending to fit into places I don't belong. That's why I drive at night. The roads are empty, the world is quiet, and for a few hours, I feel weightless. No expectations. No eyes watching. Just me, the hum of the engine, and whatever music fits my mood. Sometimes I don't even know where I'm going. I just drive until I feel less heavy, less tangled up in everything I can't say out loud. Gas stations become little pauses in the dark, moments to breathe, to stretch, to exist. It was on one of those nights, wrapped in that familiar stillness, that I met her. Delaney. A woman who, like me, seemed to be searching for something, or maybe just trying to forget. Looking back, maybe that's why I noticed her at all. Maybe lonely recognizes lonely. I spotted her the moment I pulled in, leaning against her car under the flickering gas station lights, arms wrapped tightly around herself like she was trying to hold something broken together. At first, I looked away, not wanting to intrude, but something about her, her stillness, her quiet unraveling, held me there. She wasn't crying loudly. There were no sobs or dramatic gestures. Just silent tears rolling down her cheeks, as if she'd grown tired of hiding them. I filled up my tank, trying not to stare, but I kept glancing back. Her sadness wasn't loud, but it filled the space like smoke. I walked past her on my way into the store, and for a moment, our eyes met. There was something raw in her gaze, something I couldn't name. It wasn't just pain, it was the exhaustion that comes after holding it in for too long. I didn't know her story, didn't even know her name. But in that moment, I saw her. Really saw her. And I think she saw me too. Inside the store, I wandered the aisles, pretending to look for something I needed. But my mind was still on her, on the woman outside who looked like she'd forgotten how to be okay. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was just the smallest way I knew to say, "You're not invisible." I grabbed a chocolate bar, simple, cheap, something sweet to cut through the bitterness she seemed to carry. When I stepped outside, she was still there, arms folded, staring at the wet pavement like it held all the answers. I walked over, unsure if I should even speak, and quietly held it out to her. No words. Just the gesture. She looked at the chocolate, then at me, confused at first, but then she took it. Her fingers brushed mine, and for a split second, we were just two people suspended in a shared silence. She gave me a soft, almost surprised smile. It wasn't much. But somehow, it felt like everything. She didn't say much, just held the chocolate bar in one hand, her eyes drifting back to the rain. I thought that was it, that we'd go our separate ways, two strangers who shared a fleeting moment. But then, just as I turned to leave, her voice stopped me. "Do you know the lake out past the old highway?" I nodded. Everyone in town knew it. "Would you want to go there?" she asked, her voice almost uncertain, like she couldn't believe she was saying it. I hesitated, not out of fear, but confusion. This wasn't normal. Nothing about this night was. But something in her tone, in her eyes, it wasn't romantic, it wasn't flirtation. It was something quieter. A need to not be alone. I said yes. We drove separately, headlights cutting through the mist. The lake was empty, dark, still. She parked beside me, and we didn't speak as we got out. Just stood there, breathing in the silence. Two strangers, bound by the same ache, drawn to the same stillness. And somehow, that was enough. We sat by the small fire she built with practiced hands, saying little. The crackle of flames filled the space between us. No stories, no questions, just the comfort of being quietly understood. She spoke softly, eyes fixed on the fire. "I used to come here with someone, years ago." Her voice cracked, but she didn't stop. She told me about a love that faded, not with drama, but with silence. A man who once made her feel seen, then slowly stopped looking. "I stayed too long," she admitted, hoping he'd remember who we were. There was no bitterness in her voice, just sadness and acceptance. I didn't interrupt. I just listened, knowing some stories don't need fixing, only space to be heard. Days passed, then weeks, and somehow, we kept finding each other. Sometimes it was a shared coffee in her car, sometimes a quiet walk by the lake. There were no declarations, no promises. Just presence. We didn't call it anything, what we were. There were no talks of dating, no awkward labels. And yet, I felt it every time she looked at me with those tired, knowing eyes. Felt it when our hands brushed, when silence lingered and never felt uncomfortable. We grew closer in the in-between moments, in the pauses, in the gentle laughter, in the way she remembered my favorite songs or how I liked my coffee. It was connection without pressure, intimacy without demands. There was a freedom in not naming it, like we were writing our own rules. I didn't care about the age difference, and she never made it feel like I should. Whatever we were becoming, it felt honest. Real. Like we'd stumbled into something rare, and neither of us wanted to scare it away. Our conversations shifted to text, short, thoughtful messages at odd hours. "Saw the moon tonight, thought of the lake. Hope your day wasn't too heavy." They weren't constant, just enough to say, "I'm here." She'd send a photo of her coffee, I'd reply with a song lyric. Nothing dramatic, but every word felt like a thread pulling us closer. We didn't need paragraphs, just small reminders that we were thinking of each other, quietly stitching ourselves into each other's lives. One evening, she invited me to meet her friends, Claire and Ben. I hesitated, unsure how I'd be seen, but she just smiled and said, "They'll like you." At the cafe, Claire was warm and curious, Ben quiet but kind. No one questioned the age gap. They just welcomed me with easy laughter and gentle conversation. It felt strange, being folded into her world like I belonged there. But as I watched her laugh with them, then glance at me, I realized, I was becoming part of something real. One night, as we sat in her car beneath a street lamp, she grew quiet. "Does this scare you?" she asked, not looking at me. I knew what she meant, the age, the difference, the way the world might see us. I felt the fear too, creeping in like a shadow. Not of her, but of what this could mean, what it might cost. Sometimes, I admitted. But not enough to walk away. She nodded, eyes glistening. It wasn't a solution, just honesty. And sometimes, that's enough to keep going. I disappeared for a few days, no texts, no visits. The weight of it all suddenly felt too real, too complicated. I told myself I needed space, but the silence only made things heavier. She didn't chase me, didn't flood my phone with messages. Just waited. When I finally came back, unsure of what to say, she simply looked at me and whispered, "You don't have to run to be safe." And somehow, that quiet grace made me stay. Made me realize I didn't want to keep retreating from what felt real. The rain was coming down hard the night I showed up at her door. I was soaked, heart pounding, unsure if she'd even open it. But she did, wrapped in a sweater, eyes wide with surprise and something softer. Neither of us spoke right away. I just stepped in, and she let me. The silence said everything. She handed me a towel, and I took her hand. The space between us had changed, but the pull hadn't. That night, in the quiet warmth of her living room, we found each other again. It happened gently, without urgency. We were sitting close on her couch, the rain tapping softly against the windows. She looked at me, really looked, no walls, no hesitation. I reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, and she leaned in. This kiss was different. Not accidental, not uncertain. It was deliberate, tender, full of everything we hadn't said. It lingered, like a promise whispered between breaths. In that moment, we weren't afraid. We just felt. Fully, honestly, together. We never called it anything, no titles, no explanations. We simply existed in each other's lives, quietly, fully. There was freedom in that. No expectations, just connection. Some people need labels to feel secure. We just needed presence, the unspoken knowing that we belonged. Over coffee one afternoon, Claire looked at me and said, "I once walked away from something real because it didn't fit the picture I thought life should be." Her eyes softened. "Don't do that." Her words lingered with me, a quiet warning wrapped in love, a reminder not to let fear define happiness. When I finally told my mom about Delaney, I braced for disappointment. But she listened quietly, then smiled softly. "Does she make you feel safe?" she asked. I nodded. Then that's what matters. There were no lectures, no judgments, just acceptance wrapped in concern. She even laughed. "Love finds us in strange ways, doesn't it?" That simple understanding from the one person I feared telling most, it lifted something heavy off my chest. Maybe we didn't need everyone's approval. Just enough. We returned to the lake, the same quiet place where it all began. No words, just fingers intertwined and heart steady. The air was still, the water calm, like it had always been waiting for us. We never said the words, not out loud. But love lived in the way she made my coffee just right, in the way I reached for her hand without thinking. It was in our silences, in shared looks and quiet laughter. We didn't need declarations. Our love was felt, not announced. It moved gently, steadily, like a current beneath everything we did. Some might not understand it, might question it. But we didn't care. What we had was real, unspoken, yes, but undeniable. And that was more than enough. What we shared didn't fit into any box, too different, too unexpected. But it was real. Ours was a connection built on presence, patience, and quiet understanding. We weren't boyfriend and girlfriend, not partners in the traditional sense. We were simply two souls who chose to show up for each other, day after day. No need for labels, no need for permission. Just a bond that grew deeper with every moment. And in a world obsessed with definitions, we found peace in just being.